My Book of Bible Stories. Part 2. The Flood to the Deliverance from Egypt. Only 8 people survived the flood, but in time they increased to number many thousands. Then, 352 years after the flood, Abraham was born. We learn how God kept his promise by giving Abraham a son named Isaac. Then, of Isaac's 2 sons, Jacob was chosen by God. Jacob had a big family of 12 sons and some daughters. Jacob's 10 sons hated their younger brother Joseph and sold him into slavery in Egypt. Later, Joseph became an important ruler of Egypt. When a bad famine came, Joseph tested his brothers to see whether they had a change of heart. Finally, Jacob's whole family, the Israelites, moved to Egypt. This happened 290 years after Abraham was born. For the next 215 years, the Israelites lived in Egypt. After Joseph died, they became slaves there. In time, Moses was born, and God used him to deliver the Israelites from Egypt. In all, 857 years of history are covered in Part 2. Story number 11. The First Rainbow. Do you know the first thing Noah did when he and his family came out of the ark? He made an offering or a gift to God. You can see him doing this in the picture below. Noah offered this gift of animals to thank God for saving his family from the great flood. Do you think Jehovah was pleased with the gift? Yes, he was. And so he promised Noah that he would never destroy the world again by a flood. Soon the land was all dried off, and Noah and his family began a new life outside the ark. God blessed them and told them, "You must have many children. You must increase in numbers until people live all over the earth." But later, when people would hear about the great flood, they might be afraid that a flood like that would happen again. So God gave something that would remind people of his promise never to flood the whole earth again. Do you know what he gave to remind them? It was a rainbow. A rainbow is often seen in the sky when the sun shines after it has rained. Rainbows may have many beautiful colors. Have you ever seen one? Do you see the one in the picture? This is what God said, "I promise that never again will all people and animals be destroyed by a flood. I am putting my rainbow in the clouds, and when the rainbow appears, I will see it and remember this promise of mine." So, when you see a rainbow, what should it remind you of? Yes, God's promise that he will never destroy the world again by a great flood. Story number 12. Men build a big tower. Many years passed. Noah's sons had lots of children, and their children grew up and had more children. Soon there were many people on the earth. One of these persons was a great-grandson of Noah named Nimrod. He was a bad man who hunted and killed both animals and men. Nimrod also made himself a king to rule over other people. God did not like Nimrod. All the people at that time spoke one language. Nimrod wanted to keep them all together so that he could rule them. So do you know what he did? He told the people to build a city and a big tower in it. See them in the picture making bricks. Jehovah God was not pleased with this building. God wanted the people to move out and live all over the earth. But the people said, "Come on, let's build a city and a tower so high that its top will reach into the heavens. Then we will be famous." The people wanted honor for themselves, not for God. So God made the people stop building the tower. Do you know how he did it? By suddenly causing people to speak different languages instead of just one. No longer did the builders understand one another. This is why their city came to be called Babel, or Babylon, meaning confusion. The people now began to move away from Babel. Groups of persons who spoke the same language went to live together in other parts of the earth. Story number 13. Abraham, a friend of God. One of the places where people went to live after the flood was called Ur. It became an important city with some nice homes in it. But the people there worshiped false gods. That was the way they did in Babel too. The people in Ur and Babel were not like Noah and his son Shem, who kept on serving Jehovah. Finally, 350 years after the flood, faithful Noah died. It was just 2 years later that the man you see in this picture was born. He was a very special person to God. His name was Abraham. He lived with his family in that city of Ur. One day Jehovah told Abraham, "Leave Ur and your relatives, and go to a country I will show you." Did Abraham obey God and leave behind all the comforts of Ur? Yes, he did. And it was because Abraham always obeyed God that he came to be known as God's friend. Some of Abraham's family went along with him when he left Ur. His father Terah did. So did his nephew Lot. And of course Abraham's wife Sarah went too. In time they all arrived at a place called Haran, where Terah died. They were far away from Ur. After a while Abraham and his household left Haran and came to the land called Canaan. There Jehovah said, "This is the land that I will give to your children." Abraham stayed in Canaan and lived in tents. God began to help Abraham so that he came to have great flocks of sheep and other animals and hundreds of servants. But he and Sarah did not have any children of their own. When Abraham was 99 years old, Jehovah said, "I promise that you will become father to many nations of people." But how could this happen, since Abraham and Sarah were now too old to have a child? Story number 14. God tests Abraham's faith. Can you see what Abraham is doing here? He has a knife, and it looks as if he's going to kill his son. Why would he ever do that? First, let's see how Abraham and Sarah got their son. Remember, God promised them that they would have a son, but that seemed impossible because Abraham and Sarah were so old. Abraham, however, believed that God could do what seemed impossible. So what happened? After God made his promise, a whole year passed. Then, when Abraham was 100 years old and Sarah was 90 years old, they had a baby boy named Isaac. God had kept his promise. But when Isaac had grown older, Jehovah tested Abraham's faith. He called, "Abraham!" And Abraham answered, "Here I am." Then God said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, and go to a mountain that I will show you. There, kill your son, and offer him up as a sacrifice." How sad those words made Abraham, because Abraham loved his son very much. And remember, God had promised that Abraham's children would live in the land of Canaan. But how could that happen if Isaac were dead? Abraham did not understand, but still he obeyed God. When he got to the mountain, Abraham tied up Isaac and put him on the altar that he built. Then he took out the knife to kill his son. But just at that moment, God's angel called, "Abraham, Abraham!" And Abraham answered, "Here I am." "Don't hurt the boy or do anything to him," God said. "Now I know that you have faith in me, because you have not held back your son, your only one, from me." What great faith Abraham had in God! He believed that nothing was impossible for Jehovah, and that Jehovah could even raise Isaac from the dead. But it was not really God's will for Abraham to kill Isaac. So God caused a sheep to get caught in some nearby bushes, and he told Abraham to sacrifice it instead of his son. Story number 15. Lot's wife looked back. Lot and his family lived together with Abraham in the land of Canaan. One day, Abraham said to Lot, "There isn't land enough here for all our animals. Please, let us separate. If you go one way, then I will go the other." Lot looked over the land. He saw a very nice part of the country that had water and a lot of good grass for his animals. This was the district of the Jordan. So Lot moved his family and animals there. They finally made their home in the city of Sodom. The people of Sodom were very bad. This upset Lot, because he was a good man. God was upset too. Finally, God sent 2 angels to warn Lot that he was going to destroy Sodom and the nearby city of Gomorrah because of their badness. The angels told Lot, "Hurry, take your wife and your 2 daughters and get out of here." Lot and his family were a little slow in going, and so the angels took them by the hand and led them out of the city. Then one of the angels said, "Run for your lives! Don't look back! Run to the hills so that you won't be killed!" Lot and his daughters obeyed and ran away from Sodom. They didn't stop for a moment, and they didn't look back. But Lot's wife disobeyed. After they had gone some distance from Sodom, she stopped and looked back. Then Lot's wife became a pillar of salt. Can you see her in the picture? We can learn a good lesson from this. It shows us that God saves those who obey him, but those who do not obey him will lose their lives. Story number 16. Isaac gets a good wife. Do you know who the woman is in this picture? Her name is Rebekah, and the man she is coming to meet is Isaac. She is going to become his wife. How did this happen? Well, Isaac's father Abraham wanted to get a good wife for his son. He didn't want Isaac to marry one of the women in Canaan because these people worship false gods. So Abraham called his servant and said, "I want you to go back to where my relatives live in Haran and get a wife for my son Isaac." Right away, Abraham's servant took 10 camels and made the long trip. When he got near the place where Abraham's relatives lived, he stopped at a well. It was late in the afternoon, the time when the women of the city would come to get water from the well. So Abraham's servant said a prayer to Jehovah. "May the woman that gets some water for me and the camels be the one that you choose to be the wife of Isaac." Soon Rebekah came along to get some water. When the servant asked her for a drink, she gave him one. Then she went and got enough water for all the thirsty camels. That was hard work, because camels drink lots and lots of water. When Rebekah finished doing this, Abraham's servant asked her the name of her father. He also asked if he could stay overnight at their home. She said, "My father is Bethuel, and there is room for you to stay with us." Abraham's servant knew that Bethuel was the son of Abraham's brother Nahor, so he knelt down and thanked Jehovah for leading him to Abraham's relatives. That night, Abraham's servant told Bethuel and Rebekah's brother Laban why he had come. They both agreed that Rebekah could go with him and marry Isaac. What did Rebekah say when she was asked? She said yes. She wanted to go. So the very next day they got on the camels and began the long trip back to Canaan. When they arrived, it was evening time. Rebekah saw a man walking in the field. It was Isaac. He was glad to see Rebekah. His mother Sarah had died just 3 years before, and he was still sad about this. But now Isaac came to love Rebekah very much, and he was happy again.